Once I like kind of dialed in my elevator pitch, if you will, and found the way that I wanted to get arbitrage deals is when things started moving.
But when we're talking about arbitrage, we're talking about master leasing rentals, essentially. So like you can go, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can go find a quad and you can find 1 or 2 units or all 4 units in a quad and sign a lease with the understanding that you've told the landlord that you plan to rent this out as a midterm or short term or whatever your strategy is. And you're paying the landlord the rent that they want, maybe sometimes even a little bit more to allow you to do this. Or I've seen some places where they actually like have a profit split agreement or anything like that. But you're basically paying the landlord rent, the property owner, you're paying them the rent. It's consistent. It could be multiple years, whatever. And then when you were able to get a midterm or a short-term tenant in that unit, you were making a lot of cash above, in theory, a lot of cash above what the base rent is if your occupancy is good and your operation is run well and your cleaning team is on point and all that. So it's a little business that you're basically taking the expense of the rent, but you can make a lot of money on top of that, and you keep that money, share whatever you do with your business. But that's the business we're talking about.
Yes.
So you don't have to buy the property itself. You can help the landlords by renting their spot, but then also run your business out of there with their understanding, run that business out of those properties.
Yep.
Awesome.
Correct.
And so you've chose to do this mostly with midterm, which I, again, am assuming it's like people talk about traveling nurses or some sort of like traveling profession would be like a 4 to 6 month lease. And then you have short term, which would be more of like an Airbnb style. You have a small amount of short term arbitrage units that you're working on. What did I screw up in that?
I would say that what you touched on as far as like the go-to when someone thinks about like midterm rentals is the travel nurses, but it's such a broad client base that midterm rentals serves. Right now we have a couple single family homes that we've furnished and are leasing out to like construction companies that have crews coming into town. So it's like, Richmond has a bunch of projects everywhere.
Data centers, like those teams are coming in.
You name it. So that's a huge need. There's relocations from when people get displaced when their house burns, floods, whatever. Families that need a whole house. So yeah, but we definitely started heavy with the travel nurses because we do have a level 2 hospital in our area, and we've hyper focused on like 1 and 2 bedroom properties at the time. So it really lends itself to that type of traveling workforce. Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge you had when you started to get into it and you're talking to landlords and trying to convince them to let you do this operation out of the rental? You said it took you about a year after that presentation gets started. Was that paralysis analysis, or like you needed to learn more, or was it you jumped straight into trying to do it? It just took you a while to like get that first one.
I think it was one, like being like essentially nobody. They're like, who are you and you're trying to do what? Like it was like a foreign thing. I didn't do a good job of explaining like what I was trying to do. I would like fumble on it, so it sounded like, I can only imagine someone being on the other end of the phone. They're like, what is this guy trying to explain to me? Yeah. And then since I've always had a job, and I still do to this day, during that time, I had like limited hours that I could dedicate to it. Once I learned that I could leverage an agent that could make those calls for me, and then they get paid on leasing up units too. So then once I did that, I really changed it for me. That's when I don't outbound to get new arbitrage units anymore. But that was the challenge at the time. So once I like kind of dialed in my elevator pitch, if you will, and found the way that I wanted to get arbitrage deals is when things started moving.